Thank you so much. Well, I'll be talking to you today. Sorry, once again, good afternoon. Before I go on, I just want to say thank you so much for the invitation to the CEO, Bello, the head of a Tongston group. You've done amazing work, and we can only hope this is the beginning of very good things for the rest of us. Now, let's just quickly have a look at the background of our situation in the country. Nigeria is a country of, about 200 million people, plus. That's what we've been told. That's our estimated population. Now, about 2/3 of that population is under 30 years old. So you're talking about 135 million people under the age of 30. And this is a huge problem for us because our population is growing at a rate of 2.4% per year. So about 5.5 million people are joining us every year. Right now, there's a huge competition for resources, and this is what makes interventions like Tongston's very important. What are we going to do with ourselves? The federal government cannot provide the jobs. You've heard from the other keynote speakers, so I won't bother to rehash everything. But we have a real problem facing us as a country. 5.4 million Nigerians joining us every year. This is larger than some countries. Gambia is just over 2 million, just for perspective. So the question is, what do we do? Now, in the next 30 years, our country is projected to double its population. So whatever it is you feel now, if you went to buy yam, for example, it's 2,500 naira yesterday, expect it to be worth about 5,000 naira in about 30 years' time, using the value of money to be the same. So whatever situation we are beset with now is going to get worse over the next 30 years. We need answers to these problems. What do we do? How do we engage ourselves? Dr. Bam came up and talked about youth and their perception of the education system. We all hear this every day, and it's sad. They are losing hope, and when a country loses hope, we're in big trouble. So our huge population can either be an asset or it can be a huge threat. Countries like the Chinese, they got the formula right. China's answer lay in education. China has a literacy rate of about 90% across board. Now what this means is they're able to educate the huge population, 1.3, 1.4 billion, educate 90% of their population. What this means in the market space, what this means for socio-economic development is that China has a workforce that has been educated to a certain standard that it is able to produce and manufacture, and this is how they keep the country going. Production, manufacturing, enterprise. So we have pointers on the way forward, but we need to find out how to key into them. And this is what makes this summit very, very important. We've got huge problems. Now, media plays a massive role because as media practitioners, I am a media practitioner. As media practitioners, I should say, our role is to promote our culture, to disseminate information, to inform you, to educate you, to entertain you. But we also have another important role. We are to set agenda. So when we identify problems like this, we're meant to key into, with other stakeholders to find the way forward. This, in a nutshell, is the biggest, most important role of media. Now, as a media practitioner, we are still suffering from the hangover of military rule because some of us find it difficult to transition from the role we played then of holding the government to account. It was a very dark period in our nation's history. So we're finding it challenging to migrate from the role of looking over the shoulder of governments to playing a more developmental role, which is creating platforms where we can aggregate discussions. So media, I think we can break into two basic areas, social media and traditional media. Social media, you're talking about your applications, the internet, and all these other places that bring a lot of people together. Now, as far as enterprise development is concerned, social media has proven to be a very important tool. Who use these platforms to further their business suffered. I was one of such people. I'm not young, but I use it as a tool of my trade as a media practitioner. So social media has a very important role to play. It presents itself also as a source, a very, very ready source for education. Right now, you can go online and pretty much find out how to do anything. You can educate yourself. Technology has made it possible for information dissemination and management to be much easier than it was, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago. Now, some of us here grew up in an era where you had to go to the library, you would present yourself at the library, hand over your library card, tell the librarian what you wanted, you'd be directed to a certain part of the library, you access a book, you go to a certain chapter to get the information you want. Now you got smartphones. So, it's at your fingertips. So the process of acquiring information, this is equally important. The process of how we acquire information has evolved thanks to technology. But sadly, not much else has. And this is a problem. Now let's look at traditional media. That's your print media, your radio, your TV. I'll start with electronic media. That's my main constituency, talking about radio and television. Now, I'm an avid radio listener. I don't know how many of you here listen to the radio. Anybody got their favorite stations? We're radio listeners, yes? And we have stations we tune to in the morning to get our information and so on and so forth. Now, as a practitioner in that sector, we have our work cut out for us. I'm highly critical because, as I said, this is my constituency. I believe the standards can be better because we have, again, a huge role of agenda setting to play regarding entrepreneurship. Our standards of presentation need to be better. What does it take to be a good presenter? It means do your research very well, understand what you are talking about, but most importantly, this thing you want to talk about, or if it's television, this program you want to air, how important is it to the audience? Are they going to be interested? How is it going to affect their lives? You know, a radio show is not just a place where you pick up the phone and call in and criticize the government and say, oh, this government said. It's much more than that. It's much more than that. Again, we are to inform, educate, entertain, and set agendas. That's the role of it. Now, the last organization I worked with, a radio station, because I'm driven to enterprise and so on and so forth, what we realize is there's a huge problem in getting very, very good information to the doorstep of the potential entrepreneur. That is the majority of our listeners. So what do? We decided to partner with an organization, the Enterprise Development Center of the Pan-Atlantic University. Some of you have heard about Lagos Business School. Now we partnered with them, we came up with a program. And the program looks at ongoing MSME concerns, it looks at policy formulation, it looks at everything regarding MSMEs. And the way the program is produced and presented, which is very important, is that we bring the faculty who act as co-presenters, right? These are the teachers. And the faculty members, many of them are actually real sector players. Because one thing we have learned over the last few years is that the laws of economics, or basically the laws that govern human behavior, they are in a constant state of dynamism. We are changing every day. So the rules that govern our interaction equally need to change. So what makes the faculty interesting with the Enterprise Development Center is many of them are real sector players. So certain economic principles that applied 30, 40 years ago no longer apply today because human behavior has changed. And there's also the peculiarity of the markets to take into consideration. Now, our market, again, is going to be different from a market in, let me say, Finland. They've got their peculiarities, we have ours. What's happening in our market? What do we need to do to move enterprise along? That's why we keyed in with them. So you've got the faculty members being co-presenters, and another feature of the show is we bring together one of the alumni. They come and sit down and share their entrepreneurship story. Now, we realized over time that what this did is it resonated with many business owners out there who had questions that required answering, and they had access to many answers. So, partnering with academia, very, very important, which is the approach, one of the approaches that Tongston is into. Now, we're not saying, as a standalone, media can change everything. No, it can't. Because nation building, which is what we're trying to do, we're trying to build our nation by focusing on some specific areas. Nation building is a deliberate exercise. It is not an organic exercise. we need to sit down as a country, formulate plans, implement the plans, monitor the implementation of the plans, and make adjustments and amendments accordingly, because it will happen. It's like your business plan. You write up your business plan, as you go along, things will change. Expect them to change. The trick is you need to be ready to adjust and meet up to the challenges as they evolve. So media has a huge, huge role to play. And in light of what Tongston is doing, what media can do in Nigeria is to have content that is targeted specifically at enterprise and enterprise development. Now, there are two ways this can happen. It can either come from the federal government. We have our regulatory bodies, the broadcasters, I beg your pardon, the National Broadcasting Commission and the National Press Center. They can come up with policy that says, look, you need to have a minimum certain amount of entrepreneurial content on your platforms. That's one way. Or the government can collaborate with the private sector. That's where your broadcasters organizations come in, your newspaper proprietors association comes in, and they can say, all right, we need to have, again, minimum certain amount of content geared towards entrepreneurship on your platforms. So when that bar is set, the implementation is a different discussion entirely. That gets the ball rolling. But here's the thing. This can only work, all right, if the other factors are in place. Again, I talked about national planning. It's not an organic thing, it's a deliberate attempt. So by interfacing with the Ministry of Education, Tongston has taken what I consider to be a very, very important step. Because national development is like a car, if you will. There's no use in having very, very good spark plugs if the pistons are warm or the rings are dead. Everything needs to work and do its job. That way the car will move along nicely. So again, just to quickly round off because I don't have much time, media should present a platform where we can aggregate very, very good ideas for implementation by the authorities. That's the single most crucial role it can play. Let's go searching for answers. The watchdog aspect is very important in our profession, but we also need to ramp up the volume regarding, again, moving the country forwards by way of proffering solutions. I think I'll stop here so we can give other speakers an opportunity. Thank you all so much.